Hello everyone, can you hear me? Yep, good stuff. So I'm Nick Cole, I'm one of the Associate Directors of IT Services at Leeds Beckett University, and I'm just going to give you a taster really of our journey through learner analytics over the last few years. I'm going to give you some background context in terms of Leeds Beckett University. I'm going to talk through our first attempt really with our Student Engagement Monitoring System, or SEMS, how that really evolved into what we did next, a bit about a current pilot that we're working on, so I'll give you some example dashboard outputs as well, and also share with you some of the early learning in terms of our pilot and next steps. So, Leeds Beckett University, obviously based in Leeds, the sunshine capital of Yorkshire, as you can see. And we deliver our teaching and research through some fantastic modern buildings in Leeds City campus, as well as some beautiful listed heritage buildings at Headingley. Around 25,000 students, 2,900 staff, and delivery is really split between the two campuses. We've got a very wide range of undergraduate courses. You can see a snapshot of our prospectus there. On the left-hand side, courses very creative, not maybe the traditional sort of delivery models. In the middle, we've got law, perhaps a bit more traditional. On the right, sport, again, quite different. So, where did it all start? 2012, sort of echoing Greenwich, I think, personal tutoring policy and a focus on that. And really a call to arms to generate management information to help our tutors. So we created our Student Engagement Monitoring, or SEMS system, in 2012, which was essentially really a convergence of business objects report, bringing together module attendance data, module assessment data, some basic VLE usage data, and really, echoing again previous case studies, it was really to assist the tutoring conversation. And what we found was it was quite clunky to use, and so quite quickly we moved to turn that into a web deployed system with better user interface, and that was our SEMS version 2 in 2013. And we started to develop functionality to track tutor meetings, check boxes really in terms of prompts and thoughts around conversations. And that started to evolve further in 2014 to sort of hold meeting notes. And it was getting good feedback from tutors. But there were challenges. Engagement is really, in that world, was a subjective assessment by each tutor. Arguably, the system wasn't guiding tutors to at-risk students. It was very much a tool for tutors, but didn't really provide anything for our students. We put our hands up really. The engagement information perhaps wasn't engagingly rendered for use by tutors. We had challenges in terms of optimization for mobile devices, and it was consuming more and more resource from our IT department. So where we got to really was a bit of a crossroads in early 2015 in terms of what we do next. So we undertook some basic market research. We entertained some of the solutions that some of our corporate system vendors were offering. We found that they were perhaps a bit polarized in terms of what would be a key data stream. Our take on it was that they were largely unproven. The deployment didn't strike us as particularly agile, and there was a fear that this could snowball into quite costly work. Our attention was very much drawn to the experience of Nottingham Trent University, not least because of their well-deserved award in the Support for Students category in the Times Higher Education Awards. And that was our focus really, that brought us to look at stream analytics from Solution Path. And we like that. We like the fact that it was student-centric. We like the fact that it's transparent in terms of what students see, what tutors see. we looked at it as really assistive technology for our tutors. Critically, and I think this echoes earlier presentations, it really is a focus on what students do and what they can actually change rather than inherited characteristics which they can't. It's very agnostic in terms of the data streams that can be integrated into it, and on the evidence of Nottingham Trent University, it is proven to work. So we contracted for a pilot in September last year, and we decided to deploy that into our Faculty of Business and Law, and we focused purely on 4 courses, around 500 students, and a group of around 20 tutors. Critically, we've had very strong sponsorship from one of our Deputy Vice-Chancellors, as well as the Dean, Chief Operating Officer, and perhaps most importantly, we've had very strong support from the start from our Students' Union Vice President, who's been very involved and very supportive throughout the project, throughout the pilot. So we started modestly really by looking at the fluid data streams of library loans, VLE, and our on-campus eye-printing multifunction device activities. We've harvested data from our Banner student record system simply for student profiling to help tutors understand more about the student record. We're not bringing in attendance data for the purposes of measuring engagement, and we believe it's a lag measure really. It's something which by the time you've trended attendance and seen a flat line, it's too late. You've probably lost the student. So we deployed the Stream connector onto a virtual server, very quickly got the target data sources integrated back in December, and ran the machine learning through the historic data sets to analyse those and to establish the baselines for engagement. So we moved on to the pilot with really a sense check, just to make sure that what was coming out was actually what we expected in terms of the tutors' experiences. And again, critically, we ran a number of open question and answer show and tell demonstration workshops for the pilot groups for both students and tutors and staff. And we released this into semester 2, which was broadly late January this year. And again, critically, we've deployed this for tutors and for students. And we've done that through the traditional sort of desktop PC website access, but also successfully through an app that's been developed that's compatible with iOS and Android. And you can see an example there on the right. So we get to the donut bit now. So here's an example from the dashboard. And going anti-clockwise, you can see different shades of the donut, really, which indicate different levels of engagement metric across the years. Actually, we are only focusing on 4 particular courses, but we've got the full university picture as well. And, you know, the first slide example here is really of a student who has engaged extremely well with their studies and has actually exceeded the sort of course average, potentially a good role model student within that particular cohort. On this slide, we can see a student who, in the very early stages, has engaged pretty well. But then we see perhaps someone who's enjoyed the Freshers' Week for a number of weeks before sort of picking up and realising that they've got a bit of work to do maybe, and again has thought, actually I missed that, so I'll do a bit more of that perhaps. And again, in the run-up to Christmas, a bit of a flatlining there. And really what we've got there are 3 sort of actionable insights which, if we follow the line further, we can see we get to the sort of post-Christmas position, and effectively we're in a sort of no-show situation where it's probably too late to do anything about that. But with the analytics, we've actually got that insight that we could act on. So, what have we learnt so far? Well, certainly I think it was the right thing to do to mobilise a team from across our university. So we're talking about a project team with registry input, with learning technologists, with faculty, with our Students' Union rep as well, and with IT services working together. It has needed some TLC in terms of project management internally, roughly 0.6 FTE there from IT. Communication is absolutely critical. What works in terms of traditional communication for staff is not the way to go about it in terms of communicating with students. We found our Students' Union representative to be a great advocate. Blogs, posters, we've even got into negotiations for appearance fees for Beckett Bear as another means of just getting the message across. What we've found is actually what we've done has attracted the interest of the wider university, which is great, but it can be a distraction to actually delivering on the pilot and maintaining focus in terms of what's actually in scope here. Again, a challenge is really encouraging colleagues to actually determine the rules of, well, when do we actually do something? What's a meaningful delta and what are we going to do about it, the next steps? And just standardising that best practice in order to sort of program that into the system, and that is a challenge. Certainly need to identify some key messages and just keep repeating them, really. For us, this is about student success. It's it is not about punishment. This is a very much assistive technology for our tutors. It's not auto-tutor. It's not more work, it's better targeted tutor resource to be even more effective. And the much used phrase, it's a pilot, and we really don't have all the answers at this stage. Partnering to deliver engagement analytics was, in my view, the right decision. We've experienced a very rapid technical deployment of the stream analytics, and it's been a very agile development process. What we've got is a very intuitive, interactive presentation of key information, and what we've found, frankly, is the time to value here has been weeks, not months, not years. So there's that slide again. So is it about Big Brother here? Maybe, but it's Big Brother perhaps with an arm around a student, just making sure they're okay. In fact, perhaps it's really providing that sort of radar view of students who may not realise at that point in time that they need help, but will later come to realise that they do need help, and it's really having them on the radar. I would argue that this is also about feedback, and it's timely performance feedback. And feedback is empowering. It gives our students choice. They can choose to act on it, or they can ignore it, but it does give them choice. And I think that possibly this is the first time today we've actually focused on the learner perspective of learner analytics. And I won't read it out, but there's a nice quote there from one of our student course reps to our project manager. And certainly it's been our experience that so far what we've been doing has been very well received by our students. Next steps, really want to get underneath the metrics, really, to do some deep dives into the actual stories that underpin these charts and these trends, and bring the stories to life. We're moving towards an internal review of what we've done, producing that in May, and we're very, very keen to get our students' view on what we've done, as well as faculty and IT perspectives, and plan for more in 2016-17. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
On your last slide you said deep dives into student stories. I just wondered how you might use the further depth of sort of qualitative data to inform your analytics.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I mean there is really about understanding what happened next in terms of tutor conversations, and whether actually in reality the graphs were actually explained by human stories really in terms of potential difficulties, whether that was accommodation, financial, health, whatever that was, and try and understand what was forming those changing patterns really, and try and correlate that with the percentage metrics. Yeah.
Wasn't really a question, it was out of interest to support what you just said. We are Jim McCann Manchester Met Uni. We got a similar path to what you're saying, but we did the deep dive last year from our own support team, we did a own path.
Yeah.
And we had contact people in the faculties, and we got some of the student stories back, so the fundamental statistics we gave back to our executive. It was the personal stories. We got a set of stories from students. We had a positive experience, and that went down really well. Heads of service, the students told us about what we'd expect. Early on fell out, but the people who wouldn't engage normally, so the fact that somebody came to them
Yeah.
and spoke to them, and we took the story and we came back, and we actually got quite, we got good feedback stories on them from tier 4 students. So we're aware of all the sensitivities around people who might have come across at the UK years was. And we also got feedback positively from people who said that the information we fed back to them helped them get rid of all the problems. So we assembled this, and it was actually, I've been around a long time, but it was quite touching. Some of the stories
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it's good to get that, and also for the staff involved in the project.
Yeah.
We got a big public criticism as well. So it actually helped to say that it was worthwhile what we're doing, and the university was committed to helping those students. It wasn't to spite to monitor, but genuinely to improve the service. So we can help, hopefully that will give you confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
And you get some really good feedback from what you're doing, hopefully.
Thanks.
I'm quite surprised that you left attendance out. I appreciate what you say about it makes it take some time before you register that not been attending. But we have 3 weeks which shows the trend of attendance, and I still don't think that 3 weeks, if not attended, that's still a period I think where actually you can intervene and improve the students.
Yeah.
So
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Why you decided to leave it out?
It's a pilot. We don't have all the answers. When I say we leave it out, it is there for information. So it's part of the sort of dashboard of information in the system for tutors. We're just not bringing it into the algorithm for engagement pattern matching. We may do so in the future. I think our view is that ultimately it is a lag measure. It may still be relevant, but it doesn't. The window of time to do something about it is much shorter, and I think we'd prefer to try and find those metrics which are are upstream, much earlier on.
I found from our system is that the vast majority of students who withdraw is due to very bad attendance, and that's sort of the primary reason why they withdraw by tutoring. I mean, obviously,
possibly,
that
yeah.
may indicate another issue, but
Yeah.
That's generally the reason given for why the student withdraw.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that? I think that at Leeds Beckett, one of the issues we found with attendance data in the method that we currently collect it was the actual timeliness and the quality of that data. And some of the data was showing students not attending when they had attended simply because a tutor had not submitted the data, etc.
Yeah, that's the issue we found.
So it then became an unreliable source to feed into that. We are looking at a separate project to address that.
Yeah. So in parallel with this, we're exploring a better way of gathering that attendance data.
Yeah, we've had issues with our registry data where sort of students not attended, and then 1 week, one sort of tutor lecture or tutorial, it seemed that everyone attended. So whether that was because the tutor, just couldn't bother and said, "Oh, we're all here." So there are definitely issues with recording that attendance data.
Yeah, we also have a lot of placement and sort of sandwich activities as well, and it just adds a layer of complexity to sort of bring in the fact that they're not here because they're on placement, and placement durations can vary and the timing of that can vary as well.
Just a quick question. I wasn't clear from the donuts of engagement or the graph of engagement.
Yeah.
Whether there was is there a predictive element around it, or is it just a scorecard?
It's just a position statement
Yeah.
of that point in time, and then you can drill through the particular slices to then pull up an individual sort of case history and see the longitudinal trend
Yeah.
week by week.
Okay, thank you. Anyone can use the donuts for engagement as well. That's
Okay, thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you.